All right. Good morning, everybody. What's up, world? Welcome to this special live edition of I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Happy to be here. Happy that we got a few people joining us on what is this first ever effort at this live stream thing. If I could get this delay off here, just give me a quick second here, figure this out. But yeah. Peace to you. Peace, peace, peace. Yeah, we miss PFW also. For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, we miss PFW too, and we're going to get. We're in touch with Dr. Haight. We're going to work something out here to hopefully do a Haight Awards this year. We've been struggling with that, figuring that out. So we'll get there. Thanks, Africans Arise. Peace to you. Definitely appreciate your support back in the past, and the good work you're still doing. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Good morning, 235 worldwide. What's up, Mac? Everybody else, I definitely appreciate you all coming through. So I do have a class today at 11 o'clock, so I want to get started here and honor those of you who showed up on time. And I never like to punish people for being on time, and definitely want to appreciate that. So let me so anyway, what essentially just happened the other day. What it was that on the 18th, I have a Google alert set for buying power, and Black buying power in particular. And thank you very much. We appreciate you for picking up the book. Thank you very much. By the way, and we'll get to this, obviously, I mixwhatilike.org for more information on all that what you're going to get to, including links to the free download of the book at I Mix What I Like. Please follow and sign up at mixwhatilike.org. Subscribe here at the YouTube channel. I'll probably be doing some kind of work more often, and in connection with some others. In fact, trying to build something. Maybe that's got a surprise coming on the horizon here. But anyway, I have this Google alert set, and yeah, definitely use the hashtag MOBP if you do any live whatever, anyway. But anyway, so on the 18th, just the other day, 3 stories came out all in the same day referencing this Black buying power mythology. And just very quickly, we can maybe go back to that if you all have time and you want to stick around and have comments or questions. We can maybe address some of this because I have about an hour this morning, but what I have to share won't take nearly that long. So if you want, we can get into some of this stuff. I'm happy to do that. But quickly, the myth of buying power is the claim is that Black people have in this country well over $1 trillion to spend, and if folks were more quote unquote financially literate, they'd be able to spend it more wisely. And this myth, as we'll get to in just a moment, has a singular source. It's not based on any kind of real economic data. In fact, as they say, they are estimates and projections, and it's marketing data to help advertisers target various segments of the community. So in my Google alert for buying power, I get it when it's talking about Black people, but it's targeted to every group, and I talk a little bit about this in the book, but it's used to assess any segment of society. Because again, it's marketing data, and you'll see this more clearly as we get to these pieces in just a minute. But it is reported, as we'll also see here in just a minute, as though it represents some sort of economic strength in Black America that doesn't exist. And then, of course, of the many negative impacts of this is that Black people are blamed for being financially illiterate or immature, or just in general, that poor people are blamed for being poor. And in the end, what it's trying to promote is that all of the inequality that we see and suffer in this country and around the world can be dealt with positively if people just engage in various elements of capitalism, directed at Black people, Black capitalism. And this is part of the mythology that is meant to distract us from engaging in radical political organization, which is really the only solution and the only power that we ever can develop. So, and I appreciate you all joining. Look, I know a lot is going on in the world, obviously, but it occurred to me as I just started seeing these stories come through the other day again, that with all that's going on, which is usually the case on some level or another, obviously it's more severe right now, the ability to slip some of this stuff through is increased. So I just thought, I would try this platform out, and we'll see what it says here. So, all right. So one of the stories that I just wanted to highlight very quickly is this one here. WWD.com, talking about Black Tag, a platform for Black creatives secures $3.75 million in seed funding. And if you just go through it a little bit, it's Black economic power should equate to Black creatives power. This is it really doesn't. It's not material to what we're doing here. It's, what these folks are doing. These brothers here, continental Africans by way of Atlanta, I believe. By the way, this is something that we don't talk often enough about, and I know there's a lot of controversy over ADOS and FB, FBA and whatever and all of that. And me being a radical Pan-Africanist, I want there to be a unity of African people, but we just do need to understand that for the purposes of Black buying power, they do include continental Africans who have migrated here or who are first generation in this country as part of Black buying power. So for the assessment of Black buying power, the corporate and commercial interests, they are very Pan-Africanist. They don't distinguish from the diaspora. But anyway, so this entertainment group got some seed funding, talking about economic power should be creative power. If you just come down, look at here's where they reference the mythology, and we'll get to this in just a minute. But the duo recognizes the reach of the Black American dollar, that Nielsen, which is the ratings company that produces at least some of these reports, which we'll get to also in just a minute, that in 2019 said that Black American commands 1.3 trillion in annual buying power. The number is bumped up to 1.4 trillion this year. In a report that we are going to look at in just a moment, and that you can link to and get for yourself in the chat below. Power of the Black community from moment to movement. And then quoting here, they're all going out to create ideas in their system, but because Blackness drives a lot of value. And if you tap into that, your revenue will be massive. But this is sort of what the myth encourages us not to understand, because the question really should be, or the title probably should be rewritten for this report, again, as we'll get to momentarily, that the power of the Black community is to further enrich white corporations. And the subtitle, from another moment, it should read something more akin, like from another moment of police violence to a movement of Black potential radicalism to the safe confines of Black entrepreneurialism. Because that's really what it is that they're encouraging here. And again, we'll look at that more carefully in just a moment. So that was just one of the stories that came out a couple of days ago. So let me pull up the other one here, because this is what happens on a regular basis. These stories come out, I see them, they misrepresent often what buying power is, and help confuse many of these audiences, which are often targeting Black communities, as is this one here in the Chicago Sun-Times, same date, November 18th. Buy Black, no longer a cry in the wilderness. And what the article here is essentially arguing is that once upon a time, calling for people to buy Black didn't really mean much, but now with all this money in the Black community and all this potential, it means something else. And it's really just encouraging people to shop Black, buy Black, support Black communities, which is, you know, obviously something I support as well. But it promotes something, and there's a quote in here that I pulled out because it quotes, I believe this is the one that, yeah, if you look at the subtitle here, this gets to some of the issues that drive some of the confusion. But like other Black businesses, Black ad agencies are overlooked too. And this is part of what is the issue here, that Black ad companies want to capture the ad revenue being spent by primarily major white corporations, which is globally close to 500 billion or more at this point. And in the country, it's at least 200 billion spent every year that these companies want to capture. But there's the line in here that I wanted to pull out is where they say, they're quoting someone who recently passed, I believe. Let's see if I can see it real quick. Yeah. They want to move up into positions. Let's see. He's been larger, shot Black. Here, this is the line I was looking for. As Dr. Webb Evans, and this is not to speak ill of the past, but this is the recently passed or the deceased, but this is just to point out why there's so much misrepresentation of these issues. As Dr. Webb Evans, who was affectionately known as Mr. Buy Black, told the Jackson Advocate in 2010, quote, "We must march with our dollars to each other. We must march with our dollars to each other in order to accomplish what we were not able to accomplish with our civil rights marches." So the idea again here, it almost put it to the point I'm getting at, that I talk about in the book, that I'm talking about a little bit here, is the argument is that the myth is meant to promote this idea that we can do something with our money that we can't do or couldn't do with our political activism and organization. And that is exactly the opposite of the reality that I think we need to understand. So that was what, so let me show you just one more that came out just on that same day. And this one was in Complex, how major brands are changing their approach to Black culture. And again, they're talking about here, by the way, again, referencing the same Nielsen report that we're going to look at in just a moment. This article again makes the claim that Black buying power is not only a reality, but is reshaping the way, you know, society interacts with one another and the way that culture is promoted and so on and so forth. So buying Black in 2020, from a consumer standpoint, several apps, hashtags, and initiatives have challenged the public to buy from Black-owned companies. Buy Black campaign. Let's see, our successful campaign has been able to qualify the success of buying Black. And here we go. Here's where they reference almost 100 years later, studies support the economic buying power of the African-American community and the Black dollar. According to Nielsen, they go back even earlier to 2015, the State of African-American Consumer, which is a report, by the way, that I talk about in the book. Collectively, the Black community was projected to be at 1.1 trillion in spending power, as well as the forefront of social trends and media consumption. Okay. All right. So now let's look a little bit at the report. Yeah, Boyce Watkins is we can come back to that as well. He was one of the first people I critiqued on making this point. Yeah, and Dr. Claude Anderson as well. You know, again, part of the problem here is that a lot of people from across the political spectrum promote this mythology. And without ever looking closely, as we're going to do right now, at the reports and explain how they actually work. So I'll get to the chats as much as I can in just a moment. So please keep making your comments. And if you have any questions, please put them in there, or hold on to them for a couple of minutes, we will certainly get to them as much as soon as I can, and acknowledging that I am rushing a little bit here so that I can do that. But this is the report that they're all making reference to. And again, you can get it yourself. It's free. You just have to fill out a little form. You can download it in the link I put in the description below. Power of the Black community from moment to movement. And again, as I was somewhat jokingly saying, the title should read something more akin to the power of the Black community to further enrich white corporations, and from another moment of police violence to a movement of Black potential radicalism to the safe confines of Black entrepreneurialism. And specifically why I'm saying that is because, as you see here, by the way, I want to note the primary spokesperson here, Cheryl Grace. This is something we're going to come to in just a minute here, the paradoxical side of all of this. But this is a woman who I talk a little bit about in my book, but we'll have to come back to her in just a minute here. But they're talking about that this is Nielsen's contribution to a commitment to fight racism with action. And what the action is to help big and small brands alike assume a great responsibility to help our clients respect Black audiences by making informed decisions that not only present a full mosaic of the community, but also reach beyond the surface to create opportunities for authentic connections with diverse consumer segment. So what she's saying there is the purpose of these reports is, again, to help their clients, white corporations, target their ad revenue towards the Black community, Black consumers. They are not looking to assess the actual economic condition of Black people. They're not making a statement about Black wealth or income. They're simply saying what they say here: African-American U.S. buying power. And as is the case, again, I detail this in the book, but as is the case, as is always the case, all of these Nielsen reports that get all of the media attention that we went through just a minute ago, in those 3 stories that came out on the same day, a couple of days ago, which happens all the time, all referencing one or another Nielsen report. Nielsen's reports all always only singularly reference the Selig Center for Economic Growth in the Terry College of Business at the University of Georgia, which is in the Bank of America building. Okay. So just methodologically, before we even get to my own critique, this should be a cause for concern that these all come back to a singular source. That singular source is never investigated because it's behind a paywall and because it requires levels of journalism and research that most people don't want to get to, and because doing so messes up the headline, which is that Black people have power and they are moving the power. They're moving to a movement, and it messes because when you look at the realities, which are again the horrific conditions of Black people economically, but then when you look at the realities of these reports, you see a little more clearly what they are. So here they are, they're talking about voting with their wallets. While there has been an overall increase in buying power across the community, there has also been an evolution in where and what African Americans are buying. And this is where they start to talk about how COVID and other issues happening in the country have encouraged Black people, as they say here, to pay more attention to how they spend their money and to spend it in places that they think are promoting their causes. So it is crucial to stay connected to what matters to Black consumers and to connect with them at the point of purchase. Again, the point of this report is to help advertisers and commercial businesses reach with their marketing Black audiences. It is not meant to help Black people understand their economic condition. So this is just a little bit of what the report talks about. What Black people bought online in the last 6 months: clothing, health, beauty, groceries, drugs, remedies, movie tickets, appliances, beer, office supplies, furniture, etc. Okay. This is not a discussion of Black-owned business. This is not a discussion of Black wealth. This is not a discussion of the condition of the community. This is not a discussion of how these people paid for these purchases, whether it was on credit, whether they can actually afford it, whether it's going to benefit, and certainly there's no discussion of how these purchases benefit the community as a whole, which of course it doesn't. These are, and it doesn't discuss also the reality that at roughly about 2% of all business in the country, Black people don't own these businesses, certainly not at levels enough to enjoy whatever purchases are being made by Black people. Similarly here, 58% or more are likely to expect, 58% of Black consumers are more likely to expect the brands they buy to take a stance on these issues, and 37% more likely to buy a brand when they do, up from just 4% and 1% respectively last year. So as Black Lives Matter movement is taking lasting, long impact, Black economics must also matter. But what they mean by that is white businesses need to better brand and advertise themselves to capture Black consumers who want some reflection of their issues in what they're buying. So it doesn't matter necessarily that it's Black owned, because of course it can't be in all cases, for the most part, that is. What matters is that it appears to address, now they do have reference to one Black business owner, Michelle Foods, who talks about benefiting some from an uptick in Black spending. But again, that's not what the focus is of this report, and she and her business are not the target. What is being said here is that white advertisers who use these studies and reports can see that in some cases, some small Black businesses, which are almost exclusively in areas of beauty supply and groceries, or social health services, can be supported and might do benefit from a Buy Black campaign, or the Black consumer. But that's not who is being targeted here. So this is just saying how Black people use social media, listen to podcasts and radio, saying this is where you can target them because they're listening to comedy. They're listening 38% to music, 35% to news. So that's how you can find them. More radio ad buying, because 1/3 of African Americans spend more time with radio as a result of COVID. And then if we continue down here, even making my point more clear, the top 20 advertisers spend on media focused on African Americans has increased from 3.3 billion in 2011 to 3.8 billion in 2019, almost a 16% increase. But this is still only 2% of the total US advertising budget or market. And what the point is saying here is, and this is why Cheryl Grace and others promote this, is because they're saying Black media and Black commercial media want more of this targeted spending. Now, who are the top 10 advertisers who buy media targeting African Americans? Procter & Gamble is the number one. Berkshire Hathaway, that's Warren Buffett. Jeff Bezos, AT&T, Pfizer, the drug and pharma, Pepsi, So in other words, these are the most elite, dominant white corporations and hedge funds and private equity groups who are looking to target, and they want help targeting Black consumers. So they don't want to hear, they're not going to be doing that if they're hearing constant realities of Black income and wealth and inequality, Black joblessness. They're not going to come with their budgets, and they're only spending 2% of that budget as it is on Black media. That's, Black media want more. So how do you do that? The call for inclusive programming that breaks traditional stereotypes and gives a voice to African Americans is where they go to watch. But again, that doesn't mean Black media, and it doesn't necessarily mean high quality television programming, because this is what Black people are watching. And I'm not, this is not to shame anybody. I'm guilty. I watch some of this stuff too. But the point is that they're not trying to deliver us programming that will inspire or encourage our better understanding of the world. The fact that even watching Love and Hip Hop or House of Pain or certainly all of this MSNBC programming is not going to help. understand anything about the world, certainly the Black economic condition, but it will help tell advertisers where Black people are spending their time viewing. This is what we're streaming. Ozark, All American, Family Guy, Tiger King. I mean, again, stuff I've watched, stuff, you know, I'm not shaming anybody. I'm just saying, but it's not content that's going to teach us anything or encourage our better understanding of our condition. And it is only helping the people who can afford to advertise in those spaces to reach those Black audiences to better reach them. Okay. Yeah. So the last piece I just wanted to share about that, going back to Cheryl Grace, and this is sort of what I was talking about in terms of the paradox that I couldn't help making note of, is that as all of these reports are being announced on the 18th, the day later, although this story had already broken a few days, you know, maybe a week earlier, this same woman who is whose job it was to help Nielsen reach those Black audiences was suing Nielsen for their practices of racism within the company. So Cheryl Grace, the face of the company's annual Black Consumer Report, says Nielsen's public message, "You matter," falls short inside the company. For the past decade, Nielsen Holdings has produced a series of annual reports, Nielsen's Diverse Intelligence Series, highlighting comprehensive collection of insights and the buying power of U.S. multicultural consumers, compiled from the company's multiple measurement verticals, spanning from retail to entertainment. Cheryl Grace, Nielsen's Senior Vice President of U.S. Strategic Community Alliances and Consumer Engagement, the founder of the series, has been the company spokesperson for the company's campaign, particularly the report focused on African-American consumers. She has raised awareness about Nielsen and its reliance on real people to share what they buy, but she filed a lawsuit this morning, apparently, in the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Illinois, against Nielsen, charging the 97-year-old global company with discrimination, according to Grace's claim, despite numerous efforts over the years to advance beyond the senior vice president role, which she's held for 13 out of 16 years of the company. Nielsen has failed to promote her in spite of her performance. Instead, the suit alleges her courageous internal conversations and written correspondence about race and career advancement with a number of the company's C-suite executives, including its CEO, have led to Grace being marginalized and subjected to a hostile work environment. So again, I can't help but make some note and some recognition of the fact that a woman who has made at least the latter part of her career and probably some good money inspiring Black people to misunderstand their economic condition and the ways that they can change it, is now also claiming racism and discrimination and having suffered a hostile work environment for having raised these very issues. So again, that was basically all I wanted to share. And I'm happy to stick around for another 20 or 30 minutes or so to respond to some of these questions or to answer some of the best I can if you all like. But again, I just wanted to make the point to show again how these reports come out, how they all reference the one source, how we didn't really get into it specifically in this discussion today of the Selig Center. And maybe we can another time. I certainly do in the book. But the Selig Center's numbers are themselves spurious and misleading. In other words, there is not this pool of money, this $1 trillion that Black people have, that it doesn't exist in the way that it's described or at all. And it's just meant to help marketing and advertising reach its audience, and to be convinced that when they do reach their audience, that Black people have the money to spend on those products. And to the extent that Black people have an income at all and have access to certain levels of credit card debt and other forms of powerlessness, they do have the ability to enrich others. And this is why, again, why I think there's so much confusion around the issue. I've seen some of you in the chats have raised questions about Claude Anderson, and Boyce Watkins, but this is, they certainly, be cool. Well, I appreciate that, Brother Kata. I probably will keep doing this in one form or fashion, and try to maybe build this out and expand on this a little bit. But certainly, I figured when I saw that this thing came out, how can you get which report? The Nielsen report you can get in the link I put down below in the chat. The Selig report you have to buy for $125. Now I did that, and maybe what we'll do is we'll do another one of these. When I get another minute, maybe next week we'll do another one of these, and we'll just go through the Selig report. I'll just pull it up and we'll go through it on screen here. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think, for educational and critique purposes, I think we should be able to get away with at least sharing some of it. And I can at least show you some of the methodology part where they admit themselves with its quote estimates and projections. And they say we have no real way of assessing the economic buying power of any group, much less Black people. I keep thinking how folks are the proponents of the myth would argue, and the Cheryl Grace is a clear example that your initiatives will not change our condition. Now, I appreciate that. No, I mean, again, so there's, and I try to get to this in the book a little bit, but there's a couple things happening here. There is the reports themselves that are more honest in saying what they are. If you read the Nielsen reports, if you read the Selig reports, they're very clear. They say these are not measurements of income. These are not measurements of wealth. This is not an assessment of the actual economic condition of Black people. This is, to help marketing and advertising reach its audience, and in some cases they, to attract more ad revenue to Black-owned media. But this is not. But the way it gets reported, and that's why I was trying to show you some of the reporting. The way the reporting carries it is it's as if it is a level of power that we have that we can now use. As I read from the one statement there, in exchange for, or as an advance or an evolution of civil rights and political organization and movement. And that's what I think is the exact opposite. Again, in the book, again, get it for free. My argument is that we need political power. We need the assumption of political power and get in control of policy. It's policy that determines where money goes. It's policy that determines how wealth is created and who gets it. Okay, good. I'm trying to help out a little bit. But that, so if we really want wealth redistribution, if we really want thriving Black businesses, we need policy that will support them. That's how white business got themselves started, through policy. It's check imixwhatilike.org. We had Kambali Musavuli, the brilliant Congolese activist. He came and spoke to my class, and I excerpted portions of that for the website because he talked specifically about his family immigrating here from the Congo and moving to North Carolina and getting grants and support packages that the Black Americans in their same community didn't get. So his point was, he was saying, I learned my radical Pan-Africanism from coming here and engaging with Black people in this country and seeing that I was being given benefits over them, not so that I would look down on them, but as a radical Pan-Africanist to say, I now need to understand I now better understand what's being done to my people here. And I now see a better way for me to incorporate or engage them, or engage the struggle to help them, which will in turn help my people more specifically at home, which is exactly the kind of Pan-African relationship that we need. But the point I'm getting at here is that it's public policy that gives certain continental Africans or certain segments of Central and South Americans, or certainly certain segments of Asians and other European groups. It's public policy that gives them benefits to do things here that they can't do in their own home countries, or that we can't do here, or that many others can't do. And that, by the way, doesn't close the gaps in inequality between their own people. So we shouldn't just ever look at, the people at the corner store or running the grocery and say, see, we should be doing that. And we'd be better off too, because their people aren't doing any better where they're coming from. It's helping roughly a small amount of people. Look, I've been trying to combat the impact of people like Thomas Sowell and others for a long time. Their conservative economic analyses don't help. So absolutely. Peace, Brother Pope. Thank you for checking this out. Yes, I've been trying to bang on this for a long time, and anyway. Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. Well, all I can say about Karen Hunter is that she had me on the show one time, and I haven't been invited back yet. And at the time I was on, she said she hadn't read the book yet. And I will say, as I said to them, that when my dear brother, Dr. Greg Carr, was on her show, he unfortunately misrepresented the argument. And I haven't been invited back or into discussion with either one of them yet to clarify some of those mistakes. But hopefully they've read the book, and hopefully they would, have a more substantive response or critique even. I don't mind being criticized. I just want to make sure I'm being criticized for something I actually said or for the argument I'm actually making. And then I welcome that. I don't think I can't possibly have gotten everything right. I can't possibly have covered everything. But, well, yeah, I mean, again, we have to remember part of this, and I do talk a little bit about this in the book. Part of the goal here is to create disruption and disassociation. So Pan-Africanism has never been desired by those who only, view Pan-Africanism to the extent that they think all of us are to be their slaves and colonial property. But all forms of Pan-Africanism have always been aggressively and even violently moved on. So, I'm not at all surprised that we would see a situation where, of course, if you can promote a handful, I mean, obviously it's done from within the community. If you can promote a few Black Americans to positions of prominence and power, they will either directly or indirectly be used to speak against the rest of the community, to say, you could do this too if you just hold on tight and don't become too radical. Or as Obama told the potentially striking NBA players, no, go ahead and go back and play and let people like me handle it. And then, of course, what that meant was, transfer all the wealth to the top 1 or 2%, leave nothing for the rest of us, and leave people to what is going to become an incredibly desperate winter and horrific new year, unfortunately, not only because of COVID, but because people don't have healthcare jobs or the 80% pay protection that they got in England that we don't get here. So I don't know exactly what you mean by what ADOS has been saying, but one of the things that always happens is that there are points of intersection where people end up agreeing. So, for instance, we all agree that Black people deserve reparations. Black people in this country have a very special and particular and horrific relationship to this country that needs to be dealt with. We can all start with that, but where they've gone is a very conservative, reactionary response that weds themselves almost exclusively by cutting themselves off from the rest of the diaspora and rest of the struggling people, and by saying that with hostility, that they don't want unity with the diaspora and other communities, that they've wedded themselves entirely to a white supremacist capitalist state that doesn't want to, that not only doesn't care about the conditions that have been created that require reparations, but they need those conditions if the wealth that they're creating is going to continue. And as I just saw reported the other day, I have to look into this more carefully, but we're headed towards the first trillionaire. And I don't think I don't think millionaires or even billionaires should be legal. Quite honestly, I think that should be something we talk about in terms of public policy. It shouldn't even be legal to be a millionaire or a billionaire when less than 5% of the people in this country earn 100,000, when most people don't, earn far less than 30,000, and when most people don't have even a few $100s and have no health insurance. So anyway, let me just go through. Are there any other, before we start to wrap up, any other questions that I didn't get to? Please, how do we get community members to support policy initiatives that empowers Black America? Politicians are very duplicitous. Again, this season, I started calling myself a Malcolm X voter. Please go to our mixwhatilike.org and check our Blacklash collective, Africana collective conversations. And please sign up for the one that's coming up on the 25th of this month. Just a few more days, that talks about political organization versus reparations with my colleagues, Dr. Mjiba Freyawat, Dr. Iyeli Chile, Dr. Kwesi Konadu, Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows. Please check that out. We get into a lot of that. But my short answer is that we need to become Malcolm X voters. Malcolm X said we need our own parties, blocks, campaigns, candidacies, platforms, and that's how we should engage electoral politics. We're not going to be able to count on people who are well funded by Wall Street to enact those policies, which is exactly what we got with Biden. We certainly had it, obviously, with Trump. We definitely had it with Obama and everybody, so on and so forth, going back, many, many decades in terms of wealthy presidents. Wealthy and well-funded presidents. And anyway, that's the only way I can see it happening. But movements, political organization, social movement building, that's the only way it's going to happen. Let's see. I think politics of land need looking into. Sure. No, absolutely. And this is something I mentioned in the book also, because a lot of the associated myth of buying power is that we'd be using this $1 trillion to buy land. And again, one, we don't have that kind of money, but also there's, I think, 4 white males in this country that own more land than all of Black people collectively. So while there is some available, most land isn't available. And then once you even own it, the processes that you would need to engage to turn that land into something that would produce wealth for even yourself would require a lot, from public policy to a lot of investment. So again, if we're talking about the whole, again, a handful of people can do a lot of different things. But if we're talking about the collective, the community, then we need to move. We need to move somewhere else. Kwame Ture, I'm basically, all of this, I'm basically trying to update and simplify and regurgitate Kwame Ture and Malcolm and the still living Assata Shakur and other political prisoners who need to be freed. I'm just trying to mimic their politics and advocate, and as best I can, their politics, because I think they're largely all correct, and that's why they're in many ways being still punished for it as political prisoners. So, yes, the policy argument is reformist, essentially, for sure. And I hear you. Okay, so this is the self-reliant thing. This is my point, though. If the self-reliant thing has limitations, there's no one group is entirely self-reliant. So I mean, that's part of the mythology. It just came up the other day, but John Henrik Clarke used to talk about a tropical dependence, the Lady Lugard book. The wife of the colonial administrator of Nigeria, the British colonial and the point he was getting at, and the reason I think it's still of relevance here, is that what they're getting at is even the most elite, powerful colonial powers recognize that they can't do it by themselves. The book was called A Tropical Dependence because they were acknowledging that they're dependent on the colonies. People within colonized communities are dependent upon one another. If you're talking about, again, it depends on how you're talking about it, developing a society, but you're going to have to engage with other people, even for your own self-defense. So I'm not trying to, I get it's reformist to talk about public policy, but it's in many ways also, I think, a revolutionary target, because if you think about the levels of organization required just to move Black people into an organized voting bloc, that would also mean they would probably be ready to move in many other directions as well. And that's sort of what I'm getting at here. So I'm not trying at all to walk us away from sovereignty. I hope not to be misunderstood there. But I am also trying to get us to think a little bit more I don't know, realistically, practically about what we can actually get done here. Because a lot of times, and I'm not saying this is you, Shaka Ra speaks, but oftentimes it happens that the lines that start about talking about sovereignty and independence really only can go so far, because they don't start to think about, well, what happens when you have your own territory, your own land. The reason Che Guevara left Cuba to fight with the Congo and Bolivia and everywhere else that he went was because he understood that Cuba's independence and freedom was limited if everybody else was colonized. So that's, Huey Newton talked about intercommunalism in part because of that as well. We have to, anyway, but I hear you, and I don't certainly mean to say that I'm making the most revolutionary argument here as well. There's intercommunalism right on time. Huey said electoral politics isn't revolutionary or reformist. He says it's survivalist. Okay, I mean, yeah. And again, it depends on how you engage electoral politics. If you engage it the way we're encouraged to do it now, where even our favorite Black leaders keep telling us to support Biden or whatever Democrat is put before us, that's not it. But if I think we go in other directions where we're doing it as, again, Malcolm X advocated, as Kwame Ture advocated, it wasn't with this understanding that as Peniel Joseph likes to always say about Kwame Ture, that he wanted to radically transform American democracy. That's not what he was trying to do. He was trying to inspire us and push us to raise our standards and become more militant and ready to engage powers as they currently exist in a more aggressive way. So listen, unfortunately, I got to get ready to go. Got classes and whatnot. I really appreciate those of you who tuned in for this. This is the first run at this live stream on YouTube. But I think we're going to be trying to do some more. And I certainly enjoyed it. And yeah. So please do check us out, the Blacklash Africana Collective. Please do check everything else out that's happening at imixwhatilike.org. If you did or want to support financially, the money doesn't, excuse me, is not used for me personally. It's if anything, what little comes in is used to cover a platform related issue, but most of it actually just goes to people organizing and supporting political prisoners. So if you'd rather just do that, that's fine with me. Don't give me any money. Send it to Mumia. Mutulu Shakur still needs to get out. Sundiata Akoli still needs to get out. We need to keep Jalil Muntaqeen out. So feel free to hit up the Jericho movement or Abolitionist Law Center or Prison Radio or whoever. That's all good too. Anyway, people like Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. Thanks again for checking this out. And let's see about doing some more. So peace, everybody. Catch you in the whirlwind.